The year 2020 was marked by a series of unprecedented events that caused disruption and uncertainty on a global scale. From the COVID-19 pandemic and its far-reaching impacts to social unrest, economic challenges, and natural disasters. Some countries even set up strict measures to manage the spread of the virus. In this story, let us revisit the events of the year 2016, after police were notified about a dead body of missing 12-year-old girl, Purity Mawo, who went missing from her home in the county of Machakos, as well as the body of 13-year-old Aaron, who vanished in the western part of Kenya. The arrest of the main suspect would lead to gruesome revelations, and his escape and eventual death left many questions unanswered. Habari and welcome to another story, your #1 channel for solved, unsolved and mysterious African cases. Be sure to give the channel a sub and this video a like. Turn on the notification bell to be notified once a new video is posted. Our story today takes us back to the beautiful country of Kenya, with tangible links to early humankind. Paleontologists have discovered some of the earliest evidence of man's ancestors. The National Museum of Kenya holds more than 350,000 fossils in its collection, and around 700 which belong to ancient humans. The country's citizens have a rich cultural diversity to ignite humanity. In the year 2020, Kenya faced a rise in cases of missing children, with 242 being reported in that year alone. And of that number, 125 were girls and 117 were boys. Most were able to be safely reunited with their families. However, 10 were found dead and 18 were still deemed missing. The rise of child abductions and kidnappings had families of the missing children left distraught, and they had hope in finding their children alive. Unknown to them, their children had been long dead. Some of the families would receive calls from someone purporting to have some of the children as hostages asking for ransom. The parents, already fearing the worst, sought to seek answers from the police. This led to police tracing the calls made to the children's families asking for ransom, and after intense investigations, the police would make an arrest that would blow the lid open to the case and have the whole nation, especially the families of the missing children, alarmed. The main suspect was someone that posed as a football coach to some of the missing children but ended up attacking them, and in some cases held them as hostages for ransom. Detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, DCI, arrested Masten Milimu Wanjala, a 20-year-old man who they believed to be behind the kidnapping of 2 children in Shauri Moyo estate in Nairobi. Shauri Moyo is a low-income neighborhood in the city of Nairobi. The community is plagued by indiscriminate dumping of garbage, lack of adequate water, and a number of informal housing. In recent years, however, the neighborhood has been earmarked for an upgrade, with the need to tackle the housing deficit by putting up around 3,000 affordable houses. At the time of his arrest, detectives were able to get a confession from Masten, where he admitted to the murder of 13-year-old Charles Opindo Bala, who went missing on the 30th of June, 2021, and 12-year-old Junior Mutuku Musyoki, who went missing on 7th of July, 2021. Before we go on further with the case, let's delve in the history of Masten Wanjala. Masten Milimu Wanjala was born in Bungoma County, which is mainly an agricultural and trading center to Robert Wanjala and Edna Nabalayo, who split up before his birth. His mother moved to Machakos County, where she would soon meet someone else when Masten was 4 years old. His stepfather would take on the task of a father to young Masten, and did everything he could to set him on the right path. However, they would constantly clash due to Masten's truancy and bad behavior. He skipped school numerous times even though he was deemed smart and intelligent, as confirmed by his top marks despite the fact that he missed most of his classes. His father intervened to get Masten in school by taking him to a police station in order to get him admitted to an approved school. Approved schools are a type of rehabilitation institution for children with delinquent behaviors, which may range from truancy, vandalism, assault, theft, sexual offenses, robbery with violence, among others. He did not last long at the first school, and his admission was revoked. They took him to another approved school, hoping the stringent corrective measures meted out in the institutions would do good, but it ended up backfiring on them as he only seemed to spiral and got worse. He got suspended, and he ended up quitting education completely. He only seemed to show interest in football, which he was really good at. In 2015, his mother and her sister-in-law left for a group meeting in the morning, locally known as a chama. Masten's aunt left her daughter, 12-year-old Purity Waiwa, with Masten to babysit till they got back before lunchtime. When they came back in the afternoon, Masten informed them that his cousin, Purity, was at a neighbor's house. After the three had lunch together and time went on, his aunt grew concerned and went out to search for her daughter, who was not at any of the neighbors' homes or anywhere in the vicinity. Soon, Masten joined the search for the young girl, and he would also disappear and never came back home. The women returned to the house after the search and discovered the lifeless body of Purity hidden in the bedroom. They immediately called the police and eventually began planning for a child's burial while another was missing. He left, leaving his family broken, grieving, and with unanswered questions. 3 years later, in Kimilili, Bungoma County, a distance of 474 km from Machakos County. After Masten left home, Emmanuel Wafula, a 9-year-old boy, was murdered in the village where Masten's father hailed from. This led to protests and a house being torched after the boy's decomposing body was found dumped in a pit latrine after being defiled. The burnt house belonged to Haran Ajega, a 73-year-old man, who was arrested by police officers and then released on bond. He would die a few months later in hospital after a short illness. His widow believed he passed away from all the stress of being accused of the miner's murder. In 2020, Augustine Mukisa, a 13-year-old from the same county, was found murdered and his body stashed in a sack and dumped in a pit latrine next to his father's house. It is believed Masten fled the village after this act. Masten moved to the capital Nairobi, and he is believed to have murdered 12-year-old Austin and 13-year-old Josie and dumped their bodies in a sewer. Musa, another boy, was found stashed in a sack and dumped in the bustling Eastleigh business district at the 12th Street roundabout. Masten is alleged to have lured 2 street boys, strangled them, and dumped their bodies in unknown locations. Masten's murder spree would be undone by his sloppiness, and that would prove to be his undoing. In June of 2021, Masten kidnapped 13-year-old Charles Opindo, who was last seen at Sagare Primary School in Nairobi Majengo's estate, less than a kilometer from Shauri Moyo, and Junior Mutuku Musyoka, who was 12 years old, who was last seen at Sidarek Primary in Majengo Pumwani the following month. Both of the boys' families reported the missing children to the police, which led to a probe and an appeal to help trace the children. Masten would call Junior's mother, Felista Waiwa, seeking a 50,000 Kenya shillings ransom for her son's freedom. The police would trace his whereabouts after being alerted by Junior's mother. He was cornered in his hideout in Kitengela, where he would be arrested. He was also found to have contacted Charles' father, Tony Opindo, and demanded 30,000 Kenya shillings ransom. Masten would admit to almost a dozen more kidnappings and murders around the country. He undertook his murders in the capital Nairobi, where he lived for a time, the towns of Machakos, where he grew up with his mother and stepfather, and Bungoma, where he was born and his biological father lived. He would lead the police to some of the dump sites, and 5 bodies of missing children would be retrieved. He led detectives to Bungoma to several crime scenes where he claimed to have buried some of his victims, including where he had dumped 9-year-old Emmanuel. This was able to clear the cloud of suspicion that most villagers had hanging over their heads, since they initially suspected 73-year-old Haruna Jega, who had sadly passed away after the boy's body was found on his property. He led them to another dumping site in Lower Kabete in Nairobi, near one of the approved schools he had attended, where they recovered the remains of Charles and Junior in a riverbed and another boy in a thicket near Spring Valley Westlands. He also admitted to luring his victims, which included his playmates, whom he played football with, and posed as a football coach. He would commute from Kitengela to California Estate in Eastleigh to play with the boys from the neighborhood. He confessed to killing the street boys separately and dumping their bodies in different locations. In the same month of his arrest, Masten was brought before the Makadara law courts, and the police were given 30 days to hold him while they investigated and continued the recovery of bodies. Masten claimed he documented his executions and child disappearances linked to him by date in a book. The police believed he was murdering his victims and drinking their blood as a ritual or for witchcraft purposes.
Confessed serial killer Masten Wanjala is still on the loose 2 days after he mysteriously escaped from a police custody in Nairobi.
After 3 months of police investigation since his arrest, the nation woke up to shocking news of Masten Wanjala's escape while in police custody on the night before he was to appear in court and take a plea. The police discovered his disappearance in the morning during a roll call at the Jogu Road police station where he was being detained. A manhunt for the serial killer was started, with police asking for assistance to locate him and for the citizens to be on the lookout for the dangerous criminal. The 3 officers who were on duty during his escape were arrested on charges regarding incompetent neglect of duty and aiding an inmate's escape from lawful custody. The arrested officers claimed due to a power blackout, Masten was able to escape by disguising himself as one of the many petty offenders arrested for flouting COVID-19 protocols. Parents were thrown into deep worry again, as the main suspect to their children's disappearance and subsequent murder was out in public once more.
Na ametupotezea watoto, ametupotezea watoto. Kutoka hapo hatukuelezwa ni nini liendelea.
The story of the self-confessed serial killer Masten Wanjala, news just in, he has been lynched by members of the public in Muhwea, Kabuchai. Actually, the news is in now, but he was lynched on Thursday evening by a mob.
2 days later, 250 miles away from Nairobi back in Bungoma County, a group of children spotted Masten after he had tried to join their football game. When the children became aware of his identity, he ran to one of the neighbors' homestead only for local residents to drag him out. Angered by the police incompetence of failing to put him behind bars, the mob lynched him. The police launched an investigation to make sure the deceased was indeed Wanjala, since he was able to travel all the way from Nairobi to his rural home. In a series of tweets, the DCI expressed regret that Wanjala did not face justice, stating, "The law of the jungle as applied by irate villagers prevailed. Parents of the victims were left with an incomplete sense of injustice. I would have loved to see him in court, so that I would know why he did this, while he brutally killed our children and left us all in pain." Grace Adiambo, mother to Brian Omondi, one of the victims. Kenyans on social platforms expressed their deep anger, hate, and frustrations that many Kenyans feel for the National Police Service. They stated how the service bungled an open and shut case. Some went ahead to call for the resignation of Kenya's police chief over the escape. Kenyans had questions on why Wanjala was never taken to court to face murder charges after more than 3 months of investigations. There even emerged whispers that Wanjala's family would sue the government for his death, but nothing ever happened. It is well known that the wheels of justice in Kenya are often slow, and justice in some cases is never had. Masten's father Robert, after learning of his son's death through rumors, apologized to the victim's family for his son's actions. He claimed his son, who was only 20 years old, might have been introduced to a cult at a young age. He said he met his son for the first time when he was 18 years old and tried enrolling him in school, but he refused only to show a passion for football. This is also around the murder of 13-year-old Aaron. A month later, Masten's father asked the government to provide him with his son's body in order to bury according to their traditions at a riverbank to prevent curses and evil spirits haunting the family. He claimed that after his son's death, the police visited his home and forced him to sign forms, claiming that he was present for his son's autopsy at the mortuary, which he was not. The police later revealed that they were hunting 3 to 4 other people who Masten had said he had collaborated with to kidnap and murder children. There even emerged whispers that Wanjala's family would sue the government for his death, but nothing ever happened. It is well known that the wheels of justice in Kenya are often slow, and justice in some cases never prevails. Kidnapping cases have been on the rise, even though the police have assured the public that they are on top of things. During the period when Masten was active between the months of March and May of 2021, around 61 children went missing in the country, with a number of them being reunited with their families. Most kidnappers are known to the families and take the children for ransom, rituals, and trafficking. The police have set up a special team to probe and solve cases on kidnappings around the country, which they believe is a threat to national security. However, even to this date of this video being uploaded, Kenya has no national database for missing persons, which means the old method of keeping a register at each police station is still in use for those who have disappeared in their jurisdiction. Some cases end up being swept under the rug and nothing comes from it. The families of the victims and Kenyans at large still wonder what was the actual motive and how the police let him escape without facing the law. Masten's decision to harm children in this case was barbaric, through the pretense of being a football coach, and in the case of Purity, his first victim, a babysitter, eventually guaranteed the victims' families a lot of pain, suffering, and unanswered questions. The innocence of his victims and their age shows that they were taken long before their time. However, their memories live on through their loved ones. The parents and families of the victims will never be able to hug, talk, and watch them live their youth because of this man's depraved acts. This was an emotional one, but we'll end it here for today. Feel free to comment on your thoughts about this case and whether Masten's outcome was sufficient with regards to his crimes. Thank you all for watching. Shukrani sana, stay blessed.